All right, Dave. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. So just your levels are great. Don't scream.
No Iron Maiden.
Did you say Iron Maiden?
No Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden.
No Iron Maiden during this interview.
No Iron Maiden? Is that what you said?
No falsetto. No metal falsetto.
Oh. All right. No, we're not
Yeah.
gonna do that. Hello and welcome to Breathing Underwater's Musicast. I am Dan, and this is,
This is David.
and believe it or not, we're twin brothers that love the same music. And we've decided to start this podcast because we want to talk about music and record our conversations because they're going to be super exciting. I have no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this show, in general, so we can start with some disclaimers, is we're going to be talking about heavy music, but not necessarily metal, even though we're both metal fans, and we will talk about metal. We're going to kind of cover the spectrum of music that is passionate and dynamic and anything that we want to talk about. Right, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's going to be generally about heavier music that has an edge, we'll say.
That's a good way to put it.
So we're going to try to keep these brief for the time being while we try to generate content. And if we generate any listeners, please feel free to write in and give us any ideas, any feedback. And speaking of feedback, I apologize for any feedback or sound distortions, but we're doing this on the fly. I myself am about to become a father, and I don't have much money, so we're doing this on the DIY. And Dave's in grad school, so I don't think he's rolling in the dough either, right, Dave?
Not exactly. A little more than you, but no. I'm still poor-ish.
Yeah, we're incredibly middle class. Okay, so speaking of which, that kind of leads me into the first thing I want to start the show off with, really about you and me, so our lovely listeners can have an idea about who these people are they're listening to. I'm not going to say how old we are, but I am going to tell you that we started listening to heavier music around the time that nu metal was becoming popular. So, but don't let that
Well,
discourage.
a few years predating the whole new metal thing kind of came out. It was wild happening. You know, it was during the time about the Metallica's mid-90s albums came out.
You and me started listening to music. What was the first tape we got? The first cassette tape was Pearl Jam's 10, right? So we kind of started with grunge.
Yeah. Oh, Nirvana and Green Day.
Yeah, and Soundgarden, and so that's kind of where we started. But I think, well, you mentioned Metallica. Like, I think after we did the grunge thing for a while, then we discovered Metallica, and you discovered Korn.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of got me into Korn, and that was where the edgier stuff came in, and then we both discovered Pantera, and I'm going to cite
Yep.
Pantera as like that was kind of our window into like insanity.
Yeah, I'd say virtually every metal kid who raised on metal in the 90s carried on is influenced by Pantera.
Yeah, totally.
They
So
were the Metallica of the 90s.
we're also going to try to keep this podcast, I don't want to say family friendly, but it won't be explicit, just because I'm also a school teacher, and I don't. If perchance any of my kids do end up listening to this, I don't want to get fired. And speaking of the podcast, the way I'm envisioning it right now, it's gonna have a little bit of a structure, but we'll leave a little room for some ranting and raving.
I'm notorious for that. This is a caveat. I am notorious for that sometimes.
And then maybe once in a while we'll have some guest contributors, and hopefully if we start generating any listeners, then we'll read your guys' mail on the air. Okay, so basically we are going to we're going to do some album reviews. We're going to talk about like upcoming releases and stuff that we're pretty stoked about. Dave and I are pretty avid concert goers, and so we're going to talk about some of the shows that we go to and shows that we're interested in going to and recommend venues and shows and things like that. Since this is music related, I want music on it, so I've decided that I'm gonna play some stuff. Don't want to infringe any copyright laws here, so I'm thinking starting out with stuff from our past, stuff that was never licensed or necessarily released or distributed, that was done by some of our local heroes. Dave and I are originally from Central Maryland, outside of Baltimore, and we spent our formative years pretty much going to shows around the Baltimore, D.C. area.
Yeah, hundreds.
And thousands of dollars in the meantime. Let's kick this off officially here. We should start off with not necessarily like a full review, but I think we should go on the list a little bit of some of our favorite albums of all time, man. Dave, what would you say is like the seminal album for you of all time?
Album, like single one?
Yeah, to put you on the spot. Or if you want to give me like your top 5. Let's start with that.
I could do my top 5. I mean, first one that comes to mind is Around the Fur. Deftones, of course.
Oh, I love you, Dave.
That album was just phenomenal. Something about the guitar sound is like, I think it was a drop C sharp or something like that. It was when like album bands were starting to drop keys and down tunes.
What else you got?
Great Southern Tranquils is the next album that comes to mind. That definitely comes to mind as the seminal albums.
Well, why Tranquil and not Far Beyond Driven or like Reinventing the Steel?
That album is, I don't know what Philly's on the right drugs at the time or something, but he was so poetic. I mean, there's something very deep about the deep, but also that angst that was produced. It was more produced than their other albums. You argue it's not as raw as
I think they were all pretty well glossed, put together. I don't think even were DIY sounding or they weren't like punk rock. I mean, I thought they were all pretty well recorded. Didn't Terry Date do Tranquil?
I'm not sure he did another one of theirs if he did Far Beyond Driven, but I know he.
I'm pretty sure he did Tranquil.
Isn't that
funny?
Deftones got hooked up with Terry Date?
No, I think it's funny that you mentioned both Tranquil and Around the Fur because those are both Terry Date albums. I think that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And all right, so I'm gonna give you my list in a second, but you can keep going. Just what else pops in your mind?
Versus by Pearl Jam.
Ooh.
That last week.
I didn't see that coming.
That's another one of those albums where every song is just excellent. And Stone Gosh is one of my favorite guitarists of all times, but he does something funky. He does a wah a lot in that album, and it's just Eddie screams a lot, and it's very dynamic. It's great. It's a great album.
I always feel like Animal is one of my favorite songs ever.
Oh yeah.
And it has all that stuff in it. It's kind of, Eddie is definitely in that album, especially as he was more kind of crazed, I think, than the other albums. I always felt like everybody touts 10 as like such a great album, but I haven't listened to 10 maybe in 10 years.
I'll listen through again. It's been I've been on a Pearl Jam kick recently, and I haven't got around to 10 yet.
The other ones I can't listen to as much are Binaural and
No Code's probably my second favorite of Pearl Jam.
All right, so okay, we got Around the Fur, Tranquil, and Versus. What else you got? There's one I'm hoping you're gonna say because it's on my top 5. Wouldn't that be such a twin moment if we both had the same top 5?
Well, we grew up together, the same artist. We saw many times.
I know, but we have different tastes though. I mean, in some ways, and we don't always agree on everything. So.
I will also want to say an Alkaline Trio album, but no one of their albums stand too much out of the others enough to net out.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. What about, come on, there's one that I was really, okay, let's go back for a second. Oh, I forgot to mention that Dave and I were both, have been in a couple bands together, because I'm a drummer and he's a guitar player. Our first band was called Minion, and we were a hardcore band, and we were awesome. I still rock out to Minion sometimes. I'll put on the demo that we made.
You remember the band, game Twisted Metal?
Yes.
I named it after the boss in Twisted Metal. It's like, hey, Minion, that'd be a good name for a band. Just imagine what.
You never told me that. You never told me that.
You didn't know that?
I never knew that. You never told me that. I thought you just came up with it out of thin air. You're like, Minion.
No, I didn't. I was playing the game with my friend Jason once, who's also in our band. And
but people knew, man. People knew, though, when Minion was playing your town, even though we only played one town. But they knew we meant business, man, because like Minion doesn't walk in a room and you're like, oh, hey, it's Minion. I mean, Minion means business. We were serious.
I like the topic. I think number 3, or one of my other top, if I think at least more in terms of heavy, Machine Head, Burn My Eyes, I'd say is one of the best metal albums ever, or of the 90s.
One thing I loved about Burn My Eyes was the groove. You know, the songs were like super heavy and they were super groovy. You know, and that's something that they never really got that back, which is fine. You know, like I don't expect them to recreate themselves, but I always kind of wondered if that was because Logan Matter was the guitarist at the time.
Yeah, where'd he ever go?
Well, he's a producer now.
Oh, okay.
Do you have any more you want to add, or can I do my list?
Go to yours.
All right, here's what I got. Twin Moment, Round the Fur, which is like number 1, far surpasses anything that could ever, you know, be a great album. And then definitely Tranquil, and then Versus. I love Versus, but and I love Pearl Jam, but they're not going to make my top. So then my other one after that, Burn My Eyes. I agree with that completely. And now I'm going to deviate a little bit because the next one on my list was, and I was hoping you were going to say it, and the reason I brought up the band was because you had this guitar in our band. You had Jay's guitar.
Oh,
and it's
Astro Creep.
Astro Creep, dude. Astro Creep.
Yep, that was the
Come
album.
on. And you know what? I was listening to Sexorcisto. I listened to it the other day, and I really wanted to rock out to it. And I like that album, but like, it's so pale in comparison to me to Astro Creep. Like Astro Creep to me, like they defined a whole new subgenre with that album, which was like dance metal.
Yeah.
And they've never been able to be topped.
Oh,
and like the guitar tone.
Oh, those drum beats were awesome. It was like dance beats to like metal.
I love that album, man, so much. And every time I listen to it, I shed a tear inside. My heart frowns because Rob Zombie, like I want to like the guy, especially because he's an independent music maker and filmmaker, but like his solo stuff is just like not. It just couldn't live up to that, to what they did with. They set the bar so high, and then in his films. Okay, sorry, metalheads out there, because you guys all drool over like Devil's Rejects and everything, but I don't like his films. I like the way they look. I like the aesthetics, but I think like
I don't like them either.
His movies, they're so predictable because it's just like, okay, there's a bunch of horrible people and horrible stuff's gonna happen to these people. It's like what else you got, Rob? Is that the furthest depths that you can go into the human experience is like horribleness? Come on, I mean. Don't even get me started on what he did with Halloween, Okay, I'm going to start, because I'm just going to say, because it's rant time. The whole thing that made Michael Myers scary in the first place was that you had no idea, like, who he really was, or what his real motivation was, and why he couldn't die. He was mysterious. He was like the embodiment of evil, which I think is way more evil than a stupid serial killer, which is what he turned him into. And he had a rough childhood, and he sacrificed animals, and he was abused, and blah, 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 and then he becomes a serial killer. That's not what Michael Myers was supposed to be. That's why I thought he was such a, scary bad guy, and then he just becomes like Jeffrey Dahmer or something. And it's just, I just thought that was really lazy writing of Rob's. Like I didn't appreciate it. But you know what? I'm gonna swing back the other way for a second. I don't want to nag on him because remember when we saw him with Ozzy and In This Moment?
Yep.
By the way, we're gonna have a whole In This Moment episode too.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, dude, Rob totally stole that show, right?
Yeah. Ozzy looked like he had ascites around his liver, which is fluid around there, and he couldn't sing. And
poor Ozzy. I felt bad for him. All right, so yeah, those are like my top 4. I think I'm gonna leave it at that. Let's talk about some reviews of some shows because you and me went to a show recently.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the Rob Zombie show, which was awesome. Actually, it was an Ozzy tour. Okay, this is what it was. It was In This Moment, and that was the first time I'd seen them. And Jason played a little bit of them for us, but I wasn't really into it. And then it was Rob Zombie, and I like, what I liked, because he had like the theatrics and he had the big robots walking around and the dancing girls and stuff, but it wasn't like too much, and it still kind of felt like he was there doing his thing, like more just kind of rock and roll, like he wasn't going all Marilyn Manson on us, which was nice.
Yep, wasn't over the top. Yeah, sure. It was Rob Zombie.
So, and even his new stuff I didn't like very, you know, like I can listen to like Super Beast and maybe Dragula sometimes. Like to me, it's more like pop music almost, where it's like totally has no.
There's a few good songs. All the rest of the album.
Totally.
Like Halloween songs.
Well, and I like whatever it's called, Feel So Numb.
The song that had American Witch on it, and like I like that. Let It Bleed. That one that had the more kind of dance groove to it. Those are three good songs out of the whole album, I think.
Yeah.
Or Educated Horses out of the album.
So Dave and I and our friend Chris, who's probably going to be on the podcast at some point, we went to see the All Stars tour recently, and that was at the National here in Richmond, Virginia. By the way, Dave is in Buffalo, New York, currently, and I'm in Richmond, Virginia. I used to live on Maui, and we'll probably do a show where I'll talk about Maui, the Maui scene and everything, because I was in a band there.
Will you do a show on location at Maui?
Can we please? Yeah, I'd like to. Do you want to go back?
Yeah, one-way ticket.
Well, that's my brother. You and me both, Davey boy. All right. So this All Stars tour. This was back in August 2011. I frequent some websites, some metal websites like the PRP and Blabbermouth, and I was reading some comments that people were saying about this tour, and they were like, "Oh man, get your tight pants, get your skinny jeans on, and like don't forget your like 1,000 piercings." And they were just like, people were like poo-pooing it, like it was like this joke tour, And I guess we only saw like 4 or 5 bands or something, and it was like an all-day thing. But here's some of the bands I played. There were The Ghost Inside, In This Moment, Bless the Fall. I don't know how to say this. Elsana, something or other. Amur. I Wrestled a Bear Once, For Today, Born of Osiris. Okay, I'm butchering that. After the Burial, Chelsea Grin. I'm not even going to try that one. Yeah, there was a bunch more. I don't even remember some of the names of the bands. We saw like the Chelsea Grin play, and they were kind of cool. They were kind of hardcore.
Oh, were they that one? Yeah, I think they were the one I actually sort of liked. They were...
Yeah.
They had that West Coast hardcore vibe to them, like old school, like 90s-ish hardcore.
Yeah, they weren't bad.
No thrash, no... Am I right? Is that the band? Yeah, they just seemed like a regular hardcore band. We used to dance to the little flailing of hands thing, too.
Yeah, man.
And, they weren't the whole grindcore thing, but they're cool.
Yeah, but I was just going to say, I'm not sure why, like, going to school, and then... grad school, and like becoming a teacher, and then moving to Maui, and kind of I've been away from the scene for a while, so I haven't really been following like some of this new stuff, and luckily, like, I taught high school for a while. Now I'm teaching middle school, so some of the kids still kind of let me know what's going on with the current state of metal, which I'm going to call insane core, and we're going to have a whole episode about that. So
I call it diarrhea core or ADD core.
Well, I only say insane core because I don't want to piss everybody off, because I try to respect people's taste, but you can call it whatever you want, Dave. I'm just saying.
Okay.
But what I thought, so I'm going to say this about the show. What I thought was interesting was that those other bands, like, some were okay, and some that we saw were like really cliche. So I'm guessing that like all these naysayers on the sites. I mean, the internet is for naysaying anyway, so like people, I just ignore that crap usually. But what I thought was interesting about the show was that, like, for me, not only was In This Moment, amazing just because they're amazing, but I thought they stood apart from the other bands. And even like the Chelsea Grin, I remember him saying like, or no, maybe it wasn't them. It was another one. It was like After the Burial, or I forgot their name. There's another band, but they were like, we don't have any like light show or any tricks, and we're not going to try to like go over the top here. We're just here like doing our music, and I was like, yeah, but at the same time, you guys were kind of boring because you just did the same freaking thing, and like, and remember in that band, you remember when I was talking about the guy with the plaid shirt? Like, he was the only one moving around. Like, the other guitar players and stuff were just like standing there, and I appreciated the sentiment, that they were just kind of keeping it real. But at the same time, like, In This Moment came out, and they were like captivating. Maria Brink was wearing this like tattered and torn dress, and she was all made up and like...
Yeah, it's supposed to look like they were from the apocalypse.
Which goes along with the theme of their album. I like that thing. Remember we used to see like Soulfly, and they'd have like all the netting up and stuff, and like Fear Factory would have all the mechanical stuff going on. I like that.
Yeah.
Like, it creates like an atmosphere. It makes you feel like you're not just at like a basement show, but you're actually like experiencing like a musical, event. I thought that was really cool.
Not over the top, enough to show like this is our stuff, or that shows that we're just a few little props.
Did you think in this moment was over the top at all?
No, I said it wasn't over the top. When artists just have a few little things out, they have set decorate a certain way. It's not vain. It's not like telling out or just being a show.
But I kind of got the feeling too that like just based on the crowd reaction and the fact that there weren't as many people watching them as there were the other bands that we saw, I got the feeling that they were kind of like the odd man and woman out, because I thought they were like the most solid, straight up like metal band, and they were like the most dynamic band that was there that at least that we saw. And the other bands were like they definitely, I don't know, I don't want to say this like in a demeaning way, but the other bands kind of seemed kind of like on par with what the kids are rocking out to these days, where they just seemed like they were more kind of part of the trend, and in this moment felt like they were their own thing. They weren't part of any movement, like they were just doing what they do. And I thought they were like, they really stood out.
Yeah, they're not the icons of this moment.
Yeah,
that's they use a pun.
Well, like they were more timeless to me,
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the way I feel like we'll talk more about it in this moment later, but anyway, so that was a fun show. I was glad to finally go to the National since I'm new to Richmond and I've never seen it before. It was a cool venue. Kind of reminded me of the the Trocadero in Philadelphia. It's another place that I've lived and been to a lot of concerts. Anything else you want to say about this show?
I try hard to get into some of these bands, but I just find them all over the place. And these, and I'm just like, yeah, give me Lamb of God if you want metalcore. Give me some that just has real songs, or send me back to old school hardcore, just straight breakdowns and minimalist, whatever. We can't just be the old timers. Oh, we remember how it was in the '90s metal and stuff like that.
No, I agree, and I think I'm always interested to know. And by the way, for you listeners, if you have any suggestions of bands that are like awesome that you think that we can't live without, please let us know, because I'm always open and I want to know about new good music. But at the same time, I feel like most of the bands that are being marketed right now is like the next upcoming like metal band. Like I remember they were pushing Amir really hard. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and admit it right now. I used to work at Hot Topic, and I'm not talking about like in high school, like 6 months ago. And I did that, to make some extra cash and stuff. It was fun. The stuff that they sold, most of the merchandise they sold was for bands that were more like, there was a lot of rap and a lot of pop crap that was like, like the Black and Yellow guy and stuff, whatever his name is, like they were just selling tons of that kind of stuff. And then there was all these crazy, bands like Bring Me the Horizon and that kind of stuff. Like all these like really young kids, which is great. I'm glad that kids are doing it, but it's all the same kind of like crazy, like you said, diarrhea metal, and I just feel like it's, I don't know, it's more flavor of the moment. Who knows? Maybe they'll surpass the test of time, but I feel like some of these bands, the reason that Dave and I like the Deftones so much is because they are more timeless. Like they weren't just fitting into a genre. I think some people can argue that they were, because they were coming up at the same time at Korn, but then Korn like defined a genre, and Deftones were like, we don't want to do that. We want to just be our own thing. So they
weren't a reaction
deviated.
To that. Well, this kind of reminds me of like the early '80s hardcore funk. Like Minor Threat and Brad Warner's band, the Zen punk rock guy, where it was just about getting up there and just being in a certain state of craziness, angst, or whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to say the reason is, but it's similar to that. Like, it's just like get up there and just craziness. Very similar to that old school hardcore funk underground stuff.
You mean where it's not as like planned out and calculated, but where it's like, well, and I think that's what music is. Well, and I agree with you, dude, and I get it's annoying to me sometimes when people act like metal, is like for kids, that's that scary loud music where people scream and stuff, and and they act like, oh yeah, I don't know, when you meet people that like, oh yeah, I used to listen to like Pantera and stuff, but now I listen to Death Cab for Cutie, and it's like, okay, that's great, but I just feel like you're not giving credit to like music in general, because music I think explores all the different, or art, the whole point of art is to explore the human condition, human nature, and part of human nature is
I
like.
can talk about my theories about music being an expression of music is like an archetypal where expresses certain timeless states within us outwardly. But that could take a while.
All right. Well, maybe why don't we save music philosophy for another episode? Oh, I wanted to say one more thing about In This Moment. So Maria Brink, the singer. Dave and I got to meet her, by the way. She was going to the bathroom or something at the restaurant next door to the National, and we saw her coming up the stairs, and I was like, "Hey, Maria," and we just chatted with her for a second, told her we loved her band, and she was like, "Thanks," and you should check out all the other bands and stuff. So that was cool. She was really nice, and it's always nice to meet a rock star that's not a rock star. But anyway, I just wanted to mention for posterity's sake that how awesome it was that she brought that like crate out to the middle of the floor and then like had a circle pit go around her and then did a wall of death that you participated in, right, Dave?
Yeah.
I know. I too have not been as into moshing as I was never a big mosher actually. I was more of like that kid like pressed up against the metal barrier, just jumping up and down, kind of sing along. I was never really a big mosher.
I like the catharsis of it, but nowadays it's more like
totally.
We're like, I'll stand in the back, and once in a while I'll jump in.
Well, before I moved to Maui a couple years ago, I was up in the front for Alkaline Trio in Baltimore, and that was some of the most fun I've ever had in my life. I could still rock out, man. So moving on here. Oh, I was supposed to see Floggy Molly last week at the National too, but I didn't go because it was a Sunday night, and I had to get up at the butt crack of dawn the next day. So I was like, and that's definitely a sign that I'm getting old, because when Dave and I were in high school, we would stay out till like 4 a.m, come back after like a Fear Factory show, and then get up like 2 hours later and go to school.
Yep.
Not anymore. So sorry, Floggy Molly. I really wanted to see you, but I didn't. So
funny. This guy I work with, he told me he punched a guy in the face in the Floggy Molly mosh pit.
Why'd he punch him in the face? Was he like trying to steal his beer or something?
He was just washing it. He just kind of had his face.
Oh, so he didn't actually like punch him. He just hit him by
No, he just punch him. No.
For the last section of our podcast, I swear, ladies and gents, that our future podcast will be more smooth. But hey, everybody's got to start somewhere, right? We're gonna talk about some upcoming stuff that we're stoked about, hopefully, or I am, and then we'll see how Dave feels, and then I'm gonna play a song for you. So
and just to tell people, Dan is more up on this than I am. There's certain artists I try to keep up on what's upcoming, but Dan is very much up on this. So.
Well, dude, just read the PR. Okay, I gotta get you on Twitter, man. Like. I was fighting Twitter for a long time because I was sort of like, what's the point? I got Facebook. It's all I need. Twitter, I'm sold on Twitter because you can make lists. You don't even have to follow or be followed by people. You just make a list of all the... I like it for news. Like, you can make a list of the different news sites, and they will tweet their headlines, and then you can just... you don't have to go to each... Like, I don't have to go to Punk News and PRP and Blabbermouth and, like, MTV News and, whatever... music news sites. I just have them all on one list, and I can kind of pick and choose what I want to read. I don't have to. So I'm telling you, man, Twitter, easy. Even though you don't have a smartphone. So
no, I would try it. You got me sold.
I'm sure there's even more happening that I don't know about, but let's just go down a list of a couple things. Sorry, metalheads, you can fast forward through this part, but there's a new Blink-182 coming out. I'm actually pretty excited about that because I really did enjoy their last album, and I really, really like Plus 44. I hate Angels and Airwaves, except for maybe like background music. But I read a review on MTV News the other day about the new Blink, and I liked what they had to say. They said it was like super dark. They said it's kind of a combination of Plus 44 and Angels and Airwaves, which is fine, but I'm just interested in the tone. Like, it sounds like it's going to be more like, their last album. It's not going to be funny or... whatever. And the new song, the Up All Night, I heard it on the radio. I think it's pretty good. I don't think it's what I hoped it would be, but you like it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The guy I work with on the ambulance, he hates emo music, and he doesn't even know what he's talking about as far as what it means.
Yeah.
But, he hates that song, and I love it. Yeah, and I like Blink since they got over the whole, like, everything being about teenage nostalgia. Like,
yeah.
Especially the last one I loved.
Yeah, so looking forward to that. Dave, did you know Biohazard has a new album coming out?
I had no idea. No evidence?
No, yeah, so you know about that. The band broke up, and then They all did their own crap, and then they got back together and recorded a new album, and then all of a sudden Evan was like too cool for school, and he left again. So it's like, and have you heard the new song Reborn?
Nope.
You go look it up on YouTube. Just type in Biohazard Reborn. You can hear it. It's really good. It has some parts. There's like a groovy part in it that like really really rocks. But it's like once again they're like, you know, we're going back to our roots kind of thing, and it's like, why does everybody have to do that? You know, like just do what you do. Don't even if that's what you're like thinking, don't say it, because it's just so cliche, I feel. What do you think?
Oh yeah, it's like the Thorns last album, which I listened to it again. I actually liked it more than I did the first few times. But
really, I liked it at first, and then like
I just want to say, if you don't know who Biohazard is, they're a hardcore band started in the late '80s, and they're possibly, arguably, one of the first rap rock or anything artists.
And then them and like Faith No More.
Yeah, between the two of them, they probably started like the whole anything rap metal.
I think it's funny that you felt the need to disclaim in case people didn't know who Biohazard was. You're funny.
Oh yeah.
That's why I love you,
people
Dave.
who have no idea. Not everybody is our age and into exact artists we are.
By the way, I'll post this is for the listeners. I'll post some show notes on the blog about links to some of the things we're talking about, like the new Biohazard song and the Blink review and stuff like that. Also, Dave, oh my God, did you know that Max, aka Max Cavalera from Soulfly and Subterra and everything, Nail Bomb? Did you know that Max and I don't know how to say his name, Greg Polusho from? Did you hear about that?
From Dillinger?
Yeah, you heard about that.
Yeah, they're doing a side project together.
They're doing like a Nail Bomb kind of thing. Did you read the article about it where Max was like, not the article, but the tweet or whatever, Max was like, he's like, if I'm going to do this, it's going to be like Nail Bomb, or I just do it once and that's it. I think that's kind of awesome. What do you think?
That's great.
I mean, it kind of sucks that Nail Bomb never did anything else, but at the same time, I really appreciate what Max was going for there, and I think it's cool that. And I think Dillinger, like, I'm not a huge Dillinger fan. I can't really sit down and like listen to them, but I saw them live, and if you know anything about Dillinger, you know like they're just monstrous live. So I'll definitely see them.
You told
anytime.
me they're like phenomenal live.
They were insane, man. They weren't just like jumping around and like being crazy. They were like, I was scared for myself and for them, because they're like swinging their guitars and jumping off of speakers and like just flipping. Yeah, so like I think a Max Cavalera and Greg Polusho, whatever. I think a project together could be pretty awesome. I'm looking forward, especially because
cool.
I'm feeling like Max. I'm just gonna say this. I feel like the best song on their last on Oben, Soulfly's last album, was the one with the Dillinger guy. What do you think? Because I mean, like I feel like Max has kind of reached his peak with like, I don't know, maybe Prophecy or Dark Ages, and I like Conquer and I like Omen, for what it is, but like I feel like he's just kind of treading the same territory, and I feel like I just don't feel like he's got much more going on, like, and now he's back on the thrash thing, and it feels like at this point
he just does what he does, and he's just
no, I'm not knocking on him. Max is always gonna be one of my all-time heroes, like I'm just, like Jason, I'm just one step away from getting a Soulfly tattoo, but at the same time, I feel like I
almost got one before.
I know you did, Dave, but I feel like at this point, like Max, like I said, I just feel like he's kind of reached, Soulfly has reached its peak, and like I think he should keep doing more collaboration like he used to. Because at first I was like, oh, why does he have to have all these guest stars on his albums? But then I kind of thought about it like, it's more like a Megadeth kind of thing, where Megadeth is really Dave Mustaine and Soulfly is really just Max, and he just does what he wants to do with it. So, but I always thought he was at his best when he was collaborating with other songwriters, because I don't think Max himself is like, I think he's a good songwriter, but I don't think he's like a super creative songwriter. And now he's doing songs about like Jeffrey Dahmer and stuff, and I'm like, really, is that's as far as we can go here. So
you did a song about how religious you are, and now you're just talking about serial killers.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking forward to this release, because I think it could be something special, like Nail Bomb.
It could be.
So Dave, I think we're gonna wrap it up for the conversation part of the show.
Okay.
Do you have anything that you wanna say? Anything that you want to leave us with? Any words of wisdom?
If you're younger and you're just getting into rock and roll or any genre you like, come upon us. Try to listen to the whole artist. Our brother's told his students this before. Don't just listen to the hit. Don't just listen to what's on the radio. Whatever you like, even if it's music we would like, or whoever, your friends, whatever. If you like music, really get into the whole artist, whole album. Don't just be another, I just listen to what's on the radio or the hits, Just try to go that route. Be a real music fan.
Wise words from a wise man. Thank you, Dave. All right, this is Dave and Dan, twin brothers that are not joined at the hip, signing off.
Yes.
Thank you. Please tune in. We'll be up on iTunes pretty soon, and you can follow us on Twitter at breathingunder. And we don't at this point. I'm not going to do a Facebook for us. I'm not going to do a separate website. We have the blog at WordPress. It is Musicast.wordpress.com. That's going to be our home base. I don't really feel the need to go crazy with a lot of the social networking stuff right now because I just trying to keep life simple with a kid on the way. Got a lot going on. So, and you can also email us at breathingunderwater1@gmail.com. All right, for the last segment of the show, we're going to have a song pick for you. Probably pretty typically to start, our song picks are going to be a past pick, which means that it's going to be something that's probably long forgotten about. Dave and I were in a lot of local music when we were in high school and college, and a lot of those bands are since broken up and gone their separate ways. So in the spirit of keeping good music alive, I'm going to present you first with a pick from Apathy. They were a band from, I'm just going to say Baltimore, Maryland, because I don't remember exactly what town outside of Baltimore they were from. They were a hardcore band. They were obviously very influenced by Vision Disorder, but that doesn't mean that they were ripping off. I think the singer just had a lot of similarities. They were amazing. They were all just teenagers, like between probably 15 and 18, or maybe like 15 and 22, but they were really bigger than, in terms of like sound and scope, than most high school bands are. They really had something going for them. And hopefully in this song, which is titled When I Tried to Live, hopefully I'll give you an idea. You can hear kind of there's kind of a punkish thing going on. There's definitely hardcore, and there's like that huge crowd sing-along. And when we used to see them play in these little like Knights of Columbus kind of places, and basements and backyards and stuff like that, they when they got to that sing-along part, like in good hardcore tradition, everybody would jump on the singer and just be this huge pile of people singing along. And good memories, good times, great song, great band. Wish they'd keep putting out music. Here you go. And if you're interested in hearing more, please email us at breathingunderwater1@gmail.com. All right, here's Apathy with When I Tried to Live. All views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the persons expressing them and have no relation to the companies, artists, or bands discussed. So please do not sue us or be a hater.